Creating a fully responsive WordPress carousel using Elementor might sound tricky, but by the end of this, you'll have a smooth dynamic slider that looks great on any screen size. We are going to set everything up from scratch, structuring the layout, adding images, styling it for responsiveness, and making sure it functions perfectly. No plugins needed, just Elementor's built-in widgets and a bit of custom code to make everything work seamlessly. The first thing we need to do is insert a full width container. This is going to act as the base for a carousel. But before we start adding widgets and high resolution images, there's one crucial step that will keep everything running smoothly, which is installing Airlift. This free plugin, built by the same team behind BlogVault and Malcare, ensures your site stays optimized even if you're working with large 4K images. Instead of worrying about slow load times, Airlift automatically compresses and optimizes your images without sacrificing quality. Just head to their website, enter your URL, and instantly get a 90+ page speed score. It's a quick, effortless way to keep your site lightning fast. So, give it a try. Okay, now let's get back to Elementor. Create a new container, then adjust the width to 100 VW, making sure it spans the entire screen, and set its direction to forward. To get the alignment right, justify it to end and set the alignment to center. So go to Advanced tab, set the padding to 0, and change the position to absolute. Then set the right value to 0% and the bottom to 17 pixels. This locks the container to the lower side of the screen, making sure it stays in place regardless of what's around it. Finally, set the Z index to 2 so it sits above other elements and doesn't get overlapped. Now, let's add a button that will act as an interactive navigation button for the carousel. So, drag in a button widget, select EXO2 under the typography settings to make sure it's styled correctly. Set the button size to 80 and in the colors panel, make the background completely transparent. Don't worry, if you can't see it, just use the structure tab to keep an eye on the button and make the following changes. For a nice hover effect, select shrink, which will slightly reduce its size when hovered over. To ensure everything is consistent, assign this button a class name. I'll call it Buy Now button. As this needs to be responsive, we'll make a few mobile adjustments like this. Set the button's text size to 50, then go back to the container's absolute positioning and change the right value to 25% while keeping the bottom at 17 pixels. This makes sure the button stays in a balanced position on different screen sizes. Next, we are going to create the core slider structure. Start by adding another full width container, which will hold all the slides, and the width to 100 VW so that it extends across the entire screen. Adjust the gap settings to 0 to prevent anything from overflowing beyond its boundaries. Set the overflow property to hidden. Now jump into the Advanced tab and change its position to absolute. Alright, set the left value to 0 and the top to 0, making sure it's locked to the top left corner of the page. To help keep everything organized, assign this container the ID slider-1 and give it a class name of slider. Inside this slider container, we need to insert an inner container to act as an individual slide. Set its width to 100% and padding to 0, then assign it the class name slide-active. Now it's time to add an image to this slide. Drag in an image widget and set its width to 100% so it stretches across the entire slide. Now adjust the height to 100 VH, which ensures it takes up the full viewport height. For positioning, select center to keep everything balanced. Now we are going to add the next slide. Create another full width container, set its width to 100% and height to 100 VH. This will hold the second slide, so set the justification and alignment both to center. Also, make sure padding is set to 0. Now come here and we'll give it a class name slide-next. Since it needs to sit on top of the previous slide, set its position to absolute, then set the left and top values to 0. Now drag in an image widget, set its padding to 0, and in the style settings, choose custom for both width and height. But don't put any specific values yet. Now duplicate this container 4 more times, like this, and replace each image with a new one. This will give us a total of 5 slides. At this point, we have our slide set up, but we need to adjust the structure so that everything layers properly. The main slider container should be positioned outside of all the individual slides. Since all slides are absolutely positioned, it might be tricky to select the right container. If needed, temporarily hide the visibility of the slider container so you can work more easily. Now, insert another full width container right below the slider. Set its width to 100% and height to 170 pixels. To keep everything clean, make sure the gap is set to 0. Now go here and make sure overflow is hidden. Jump into the Advanced tab, set the padding to 0 and change the position to absolute. Then set the left value to 0 and the bottom value to 0. Go here, assign this container a class name of slider-content. Inside this new container, we'll add some text. Drag in a text editor widget, set it to heading 1 and enter the content that will be displayed on each slide. Each line of text should be wrapped in an individual H1 tag to maintain proper structure and styling. Now that the layout is in place, we need to make everything functional. Insert a new container and drag an HTML widget inside it. This is where we'll paste the custom HTML code that powers the slider effect. So go to the pinned comment, copy the code from there and paste it here. Hit publish and preview the page to see how everything comes together. If you notice, the event isn't working perfectly. There are a few things to check. First, make sure the HTML code container is positioned at the bottom level of the layout. If needed, rearrange the container structure so that everything layers correctly. Also, double check that the slider ID matches exactly across all the elements in the setup. If any part of the effect still looks off, go to the style section and adjust the font size and color properties to match your design. By following these steps, you now have a fully responsive WordPress carousel that looks clean, functions smoothly, and adapts perfectly to any screen size. Comment below if you have any questions and I'll help you out. Click this video if you want to triple your site speed in just 1 minute. You're really gonna thank me for this, so click here and I'll see you there.